Alright everyone, welcome back to another episode of All the Mod 6. I hope everyone is doing great today. I know that I am as always. We're hopping right back into our game save here. We have done a little bit of work on stream and off camera. So I'm going to run you guys through that a little bit. I actually went ahead and I'm doing something a little bit different based on a little bit of feedback from the community here. So typically what I do, as some of you who have kept up with the series or many of the other series that I do know, when we do stuff on stream, I typically will just run you guys through it, and that's about it. I do a lot of talking in those episodes. The last episode was a great example of it. I did a lot of talking, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like having those episodes here or there where we're just kind of being educational and going through things that are maybe a little bit more technical. But I think it would be a good idea, and it was a great suggestion, to instead of walking through everything, why don't we kind of backtrack a little bit and take some stuff down and put it back up for the episodes here on YouTube. So those of you who have been keeping up with the streams probably would have already seen some of this. I'm not going to do it all the time. I think it makes sense in those case scenarios where we are kind of tinkering around and learning how to get things set up. And then taking it back a step and then showing you guys here on camera how we got that actually set up by actually performing it and not just talking about it. So that's what we're going to try to do today. So for those of you who have been watching the streams, this might be a little bit repetitive. We'll try to keep it a little bit different and mix things up a little bit, but we're going to give it a go and let's just see how it feels. So always open to try something new, right? So obviously, here in our world, I've done a little bit of work, and certain things I definitely can't backtrack on, like modifying this whole entire area over here. Definitely was one of those streams, the last stream, where we did a lot of terraforming. So if you guys recall, this was all recessed down here in the middle. We didn't have this outside walkway either. And so what we went ahead and did is we just kind of filled everything out. We leveled it up to this same exact height here so we could utilize this space. It was just kind of dead space we weren't really using. And then over here, we made these little downward areas over here a little bit more usable as well. So we're going to put some stuff in here. Probably on this side, we'll put some shops as well. Maybe some like fishing areas and such, since we do have the waterfront right here. It'd be pretty cool to see. Obviously not 100% completed. We just kind of got it all terraformed, some trees in place, and we still kind of need to get all the nice details figured out. But that's not a problem. We'll get that done eventually. But the main aspect of what we're going to be focusing on today is right over here. Now, you might already see I do have an area set up, ready to go. And I have all the components. So luckily, we won't be doing too much crafting here. It's more so placing everything, and I'm going to walk through it as we are going through what we need. And then as we jump into getting everything set up. So if you guys recall from the last episode, we did get into Mekanism and or tripling. Now with Mekanism, you can actually get it up to 5 times the ore output from every single ore that you have, but it definitely takes a lot to do. We started on, the doubling of it, which is pretty straightforward. The tripling, obviously a little bit more work, couple more machines like you saw. Now, once you get into ×4, which is the stage that we're on as we progress up through the different tiers, it gets a little bit more tricky. So we're going to start with one of those components today, and that is the Salination Plant. So in order to continue on through, what we need to get up and going is a Salination plant to make brine. The brine is going to go into an Electrolytic Separator. I got some cheat notes over here, so I'm referencing them. The Electrolytic Separator is going to take that brine and make it into chlorine. That goes through another process in a chemical infuser. We're going to have to grab the hydrogen from the other Electrolytic Separator that we have down in the basement. And the chlorine and the hydrogen are going to make hydrogen chloride, which then goes into a chemical injection chamber, which is where then the ore actually goes into. So I know it's a lot to explain there, and honestly, for those of you who are visual learners or visual understanders, probably didn't make a lot of sense. But the main idea to get from it is the main thing that we need to start with is getting a salination plant up and going. Now, if you go into here, into the game, and you look in JEI here, we look for Mekanism, and we look for Salination Plant, you're not going to find it. It's not in here because it's not a singular block. It is a multi-block structure. Now, you can Google this. You can find up a bunch more information on it, so I highly recommend doing that if you're not familiar with it. We have all the components that we need right here. Now, you can make it much, much smaller than what we are making it. I believe the base tier is a 4x4 at the bottom and then 2 high on each side. This is one of those weird structures where it is a 4x4. But for us, we are going all out because we have enough resources to do so. And we are going, I think the max is 18 blocks high. Ooh, mysterious warriors have been spotted. Let's get these guys taken out. These guys have been a big pain lately with our settlement here, as they have been killing a lot of our, what did they say, southwest? Over here? They've been killing a lot of our colonists over here. Did it say southwest, right? Southwest. Yeah, we're in the southwest. Where are these guys? Oh, there they are. Sometimes they spawn in really weird spots, but they spawn pretty far off too. So, all right, we got one of them. Where is the other guy then? I mean, they're gonna be pretty close here. Ah, there he is. And typically it's just the two. Get them taken out. We get that nice victory music. That's what we always want to hear. And then obviously we got whatever loot dropped. Let's clean this bad boy up a little bit here. We don't need this stuff in our inventory. Actually, I think we'll be pretty good there. Okay, cool. Wow, I'm actually surprised. So, anywhoosins. So, the Salination Plant, that is where we're starting out to get the brine. Now, basically what this is going to do is going to take water, and it just heats it up to make the brine. It's very interesting on the technicalities behind it. But like I said, we are going all out. We are going to the max height. But for those of you who are just getting started right off the bat, all you're going to need is the thermal evaporation controller, because actually I believe that's actually what we're making. Like it was called a salination plant, but now it's the thermal evaporation chamber is more so what it's overall called. As different updates of Mekanism have come out, I think they've changed and tweaked the wording a little bit, but it's one half dozen of the other. So we need one of these thermal evaporation controllers. Pretty straightforward to make. You are going to need a whole heck of a lot of these thermal evaporation blocks, so just keep that in mind, and some advanced control circuits. But for us, that is very, very easy. We're going to need at least 2 valves. For us, we have 3, and that's going to be for a very specific reason here in just a second. Again, very easy crafting. And then these thermal evaporation blocks are very, very straightforward. Again, just a good amount of steel. You're going to need a lot of steel for this. Mekanism is a very steel intensive mod, so definitely have a good way of steel production up and going before you hop into this, and then a little bit of copper. So for us, as you can see, we have over 3 stacks of these blocks. Again, 3 of the valves, and then a controller itself. So we're going to start with the normal blocks here, and we're going to start in our pit. So I am recessing this down, like I said, since it goes 18 high. I didn't want to start at the base height here and have it go 18 in the air. So we are going to recess it down because you can have your controller at any place within the multi-block structure. So we're going to hop down in our hole here. Now, I did go around and I put these Gabbro bricks in here. No one's going to see them once we put this all up in here. So it doesn't much matter, honestly, but I kind of just was a little bit bored. So I was like, oh, I'll just put these in here. So we're going to start, like I said, with the 4x4 of these base ones, and then we're just going to keep going up. So it's going to be a very, very straightforward just to get these all placed in. You are going to leave that 2x2 in the middle because obviously it's going to be hollow for what you are going to be utilizing this for. All right, guys. So as you can see, I got mine all set up here. Pretty straightforward. I do have a couple of blocks left out. That's where our controller and our valves are going to go here in just a second. But I do want to show you, because this is very specific at the top here. When you do get to the peak of this multi-block, it is going to go like this, where each of the corners is left off on the top layer. I'm pretty positive this is how it has to be. You could try your luck and see if it works without having it set up like that, but I'm pretty positive that's how it is, because there's a way that you could actually put solar panels up here and have it run off of solar power to bump up the overall thermal capacity of this thermal evaporation chamber. But that's beside the point. Anyway, we're going to keep moving on here. So we have these open spaces here. Let's grab our controller and let's grab our valves. So controller is going to go right here. I always like to keep it personally at eye height. So typically, the second block off the ground. We are going to put a valve here. I'll get to that one in just a second here. And then, like I said earlier, this does take in water and outputs brine. So what we're going to need is the 2 valves to, for one, input the water, and then 1 output the brine. So we're going to put 2 in the back here, just like so. And as you can see, when we put all those in together, we got the little particle effects, meaning that it is good to go. Now, right off the bat, it is going to start working. As you can see, it did a little bit of work there, and it got up to a decent temperature there. But honestly, this is your temperature bar right down here. You're going to want it to get as high as you possibly can. And we're really not there with it. So obviously, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to get some water up and going into it. Now, there's a couple different ways that you could obviously do this, but the best one I recommend doing is just getting a sink and hooking into a sink. If you guys are unaware, the sink from Cooking for Blockheads, right? Cooking for Blockheads, yep, is a unlimited water source, and it only takes up 1 block. And you can pump water right out of it via these different pipes. So that's what we have here. So obviously, get the sink up and going, get some mechanical pipes up and going. Doesn't matter what tier. For us, I went with the highest tier just because we had the resources for it. I should also mention, for this whole setup here, I am going for an aesthetic build. Obviously, there's other ways that you could do this to be more convenient, or, you know, you don't have to have it recessed into the ground. You could just have it out in the open. But you guys know how I am with building and kind of incorporating things in. I just want it to look really, really cool and incorporated into the setup that we already have going here. But anyway, so our mechanical pipes, ultimate mechanical pipes, they are really great too, because they do have a high pump rate and a capacity within each one as well. So that's why I went with the ultimates here. We're going to have that hook right into there and all the way down to here. Now, as you can see, we have it hooked up, but it's not pumping water. You don't see water in the pipe. You do need to take your configurator here, and you need to shift and then right click on it to pull out of there and into our thermal evaporation chamber, aka the salination plant, whatever you want to call it. So if we go into our controller now, as you can see, we do have some water, and we are producing a teeny little bit of brine. Now, this only has a certain amount of capacity within it, and it has, the capacity is based on how big you have your whole entire setup. So for us, we have an extremely large and tall one to the max capacity. So we have a capacity of what, 4,600 buckets in here. And we could output probably a decent amount of brine as well. And the other cool thing too is if you look in the top, it actually shows the water texture in there, which is pretty cool. The next thing that we're going to want to do, obviously we're producing some brine now, is we are going to want to pump out the brine itself. So what we're going to want to do is hook this up, but it's going to be a little bit tricky. And actually, I probably should have done this before I had the water going here. So actually, let me adjust this. Let me get it set up properly, and I'll show you guys what I mean here. All right, guys. So I went ahead and I fixed it to how I want it to be here. Again, I'm going for aesthetics over true functionality. Really, it'd be more ideal to kind of hide this or have it come out different sides so they're not connecting. But I really wanted it to run parallel, the 2 pipes. So for the water input and then the brine output, I thought it would look really cool. So that's what we're going for here. And as you can see, we have them running next to each other, but that's the problem, is when you put them next to each other, they automatically connect. Well, if you just take your configurator here, once again, you shift and you click on this, either side, you can change it to none. And that's what you want it to be. You want them to be disconnected fully. Now, you're going to want to do this before you start pumping any kind of liquid into your system here. So obviously, if you have water running in here and you try to put this down, it's going to pull the water into that, and you don't want it like that. So make sure they're both empty while you're setting things up, and then what you can do is actually switch them over. Now, you might notice there is a connection right here to the sink. It's not going to do anything because we don't have it set. Once we have the brine coming out of here, then we will switch that off here. So I think what we need to do is first go up here and check. So we do have our brine coming out. I think we need to change this to be pull. Yep. So if you change that to be pull, now we have our brine going into our pipes. And what we could do is actually turn that off. I actually think it'll switch over here, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see, we might have might have messed it up a little bit. It is getting there, and I think it's going to clear out the pipes. I think, unfortunately, we just got a little bit of water in it. So let's see if it slowly but surely trickles away. All right, guys, so I got it figured out. So unfortunately, the water had gotten into that second pipe there, and it's a little bit tricky with it. It didn't like fully flush it out, and the brine would stop pumping into it, unfortunately, into the pipes because of it. So what I ultimately ended up doing is actually crafting up this trash void from Cyclic, and then all you got to do is I put it onto the pipe here, and it just drained it out completely, and as you can see, the brine is now flowing freely into it. So we are actually all good to go in that case scenario. So a nice little trick there for you guys if you are trying to do a little bit of cleanup in some pipes or anything like that. It did say it was specifically for items, but it did work for our piping with water. So hey, maybe it'll work in your case scenario as well. All right, so moving right along from there, we do need some additional piping here. And I actually went too far down here with this pipe. So let's grab some of these here. And we're actually going to run it across the ceiling here, because my ultimate goal with this brine is to actually pipe it into our refined storage system. So if you guys recall, I think it was 2 episodes ago when we got into some additional bee stuff and we were changing the honey over to be a liquid honey. Well, I was planning to have that honey be pumped into a refined storage system so we can move it wherever we want to move it. Well, ultimately, that didn't work out the way I wanted it to, but we still had the liquid storage within our refined storage system. So what I decided to do was keep it in here. As you can see, we do have the fluid storage disk. That is 16,384, or 16,384 millibuckets. So it's 16,000 buckets. That's how much it stores in this fluid storage disk, which is pretty crazy. 16,000 buckets. Just let that sink in a little bit. Like at how many buckets that actually is. So really, really nice to have that incorporated into our setup here, and we could always expand more, and you can, you know, dual up on storage and things like that with it. We also have our wireless fluid grid here, so we could see what we got going on right now. We do have 1,200 buckets of brine currently, because we did have our setup up and going before I tore it down to show you guys what we got going on. But anyway, so I do want it to flow into our system again, and the way to do that is we're going to come down here. So unfortunately, we can't have it set up to where these pipes go directly into our network. As you see, we have our network receiver right here. We did get another one set up just so we could tie it into a lot of the stuff we're going to get set up over on this area. So the way to do this, the easiest way to do this, is just have our mechanical pipes have a buffer on the basic fluid tank here, and then have an importer set to liquids so that it imports the liquid into our system. And then what we can do is go over to our wireless fluid grid here, and we could see it bumping up as it is being produced and dumped into our system, which is awesome. It's exactly what we wanted. Now, realistically, this is not running very quickly at all for what we would need it to be running for our whole entire setup for the tier 4, or the 4 times ore production. I think they call it technically tier 3, but it is what it is. We're going for 4 times duplication on ore processing. And it's not really running great. It's producing a 1.6 millibuckets per tick, which it's not horrible, but it's not amazing by any means of the imagination there. So what we're gonna do to help bump it up is add on an item that will increase the temperature of this thermal evaporation controller or chamber, whatever you want to call it. Now, one way to do it, where I've seen a lot of YouTubers do it, a lot of other people do it, is you make solar panels from Mekanism. So if we go to Mekanism here and we go to solar, you get some of these advanced solar generators here. You put them on top, and it helps produce the power that is necessary to heat up the thermal evaporation plant. However, there's a different way to do it as well, via the resistive heater. And that is exactly what we made up here. I can show you actually real quick the recipe. Not too bad. A little bit of tin, redstone, steel casing, and an energy tablet, all from Mekanism. And we could even get the description here going. It's a condensed coiled resistor capable of converting electrical energy directly into heat energy, which is what we need. We need heat energy. So we're going to plop this one right down here. As you see, it already was starting to work because it already had a backlog of power from being in my inventory. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to take this Thermodynamic Conductor, which is used for heat. As you can see, it is heat specific in Mekanism, so you do need to have one of these up and going. Again, I would recommend getting the Ultimate if you have the resources for it, just because it transfers quicker, it has a higher capacity. Like, it really is just the ultimate tier of the transfer that you would want. So we're going to throw this on here just like so. And what it's going to start doing is changing some of this heat and transferring it into our system here. So as you can see, it is slowly bumping up. However, without a consistent power supply here, it will start to slow down more. So the best way to help with this is obviously get an ender gate on here. So we'll throw an ender gate onto our setup here. I think we actually have to throw it onto the side, just like so. And then you can actually change the usage. So by default, it is 40 FE per tick. However, we threw on a 5K ender gate there from Powa. So let's do 3,000. You could easily do 1,000, but we're going to do 3,000. Now this is going to be 3,000 FE per tick. Now, realistically, with our power production as it is, it's not by any means of the imagination the most amazing, but it is definitely enough to be able to handle that. So we're going to set it at 3,000. You just hit click here. This little check mark, it's going to set it to 3K. Now, you could switch this back and forth. Obviously, if you wanted to, you could lower it down, you could bump it up, tinker with it to find what the best setting is for your setup and what power that you have available to you. Now, if we take a peek in our thermal evaporation plant, it is quickly bumping up in the temperature here. And as you can see, as it's going up, so is our production per tick of the brine that we want, which is awesome. And like I said, for us with our power setup, like if we come over to our solar panels over here, these guys probably don't have, they don't have the highest light production right now, but it's not even taking a dent out of our energy production at all. We don't see it jumping down at all. So we are obviously clearly in the positive with that setup. So yeah, that is pretty much the gist of it for the first part. Obviously, the next part is going to get being a electrolytic separator up and going. We definitely need to get that one next. So we could do that. We do have pretty much all the components as patterns within our system. So we're going to do that, get some of those components started up. It really should not take that long to do to get everything up and going here. And there we go. We have our electrolytic separator. Now with this one, we do want to take the brine and it's going to make it into chlorine that goes into the chemical infuser. So I think what we are going to do is actually take this and set it up downstairs. I think that would be the best way to do it, is kind of try to keep all of this stuff together. Because like I was mentioning earlier, what we're going to actually have to do is switch this over so that we're actually getting the hydrogen from this once again, because we are right now just dumping it out. But what we're going to need to do is actually be producing hydrogen and having it output somehow to our system. So I think we're going to have to kind of tinker with this just a little bit to get it to the right positioning to be producing what we need. So let me get that done real quick and I'll bring you guys back once we have it set up properly. All right, guys, so I think I have everything set up. Again, I do want to emphasize this is probably not the most efficient way to do it, but hey, I wanted to try it this way. The basic idea is still there. You can obviously cut out a lot of the excess fat that we have going on with our setup, but hey, I thought it would be cool to try it this way. So what we got going on over here is a little bit of a movement of things. So we did shift our sink to this side. We do have our electrolytic separator here, which is still going. So we are still producing the oxygen and the hydrogen here. We have one going out to one side. That's gases here. Yeah, gases. So the left side is output 1, which is going out that way. And then the back is output 2, which should be our oxygen, right? Yeah, all of our oxygen is going into that pipe, whereas all of our hydrogen, I believe, right? Hydrogen, yep, is going into this pipe here, which has nowhere to go just yet because we do need to get the chemical infuser up and going first, which we will get to in just a second. Now, I did go ahead and I tied into our refined storage system here over to another electrolytic separator. So this electrolytic separator is going to take our brine and make the chlorine that we need to mix with the hydrogen to get hydrogen chloride. I know, a lot of stuff, right? And very separated. That's what I was saying. You could kind of cut off some of the fat here. So anyway, pretty straightforward setup, guys. Just, you know, some power, some from cabling. What we have here is an exporter and an importer. So basically what we want to have here for the exporter is it set to liquids or fluids, I should say. Then we just want to search for brine in JEI. We'll go like that and put it in here. So it knows to input brine. Now the only other thing that we got to do is actually set it up so that it is importing the fluid properly. So input to the left, actually, it knew right away that that's where we wanted it to go. So now we are getting the chlorine and we're also getting sodium. Now, I don't believe we need a sodium right at this very moment, so we're going to dump that out, and we're just going to have it go like this. Now, I think this is going to go actually relatively slow, if I'm not mistaken. So we could put some speed upgrades in here. I think it's thunderstorming outside. Yeah, it seems like it. Let's try to get some speed upgrades, because that's really where this is going to come in handy here. So I don't think stack upgrades are going to work. Yeah, I don't think the stack upgrades will work, and I only crafted up one. I don't know why I crafted up one. Now, really, probably the most ideal thing, we could actually try a stack upgrade. We could see if it works, because we have a lot backlogged here. I don't know. I wonder if it would work. So what do we need? Two more? Two more? Let's try it out. Yeah, so that stack upgrade is what we needed there. I put it in, and it just pretty much instantly filled up to the max with the brine there, and we have all of the chlorine that we need. Now, what we want to do is actually take that chlorine, if I could spell, there we go. We do want to have it imported then back into our system. Now, as you see here, there's a couple of different options for these different ones. And when you hover over like this one here, you would think that you would be able to click it and pull it onto there, but you can't, and it doesn't highlight in green. What you want to do is just wait until you get to the one that actually highlights these cells here in green, and then just drag and drop, and then it will be importing that. Now, obviously, we do need to configure it. This is a gas, right? Chlorine is a gas? Question mark? Yes. So what we would want to do is have it output on the top, right? Top, output that one. And it should output it. Now, the question is, do we have to have a bucket or a item in between to eject it back into our system? That might be the case. If so, what we might want to do instead is actually just have this piped over to where we need it, because we need it piped over here, and what we can do is just have it run backwards, under, and up and over to this one here. But then obviously we need to have that be able to pump out, which we could have it pump out and over if necessary. Because what is that going to give us? Hydrogen chloride. Let's think about this for a second here. All right, so slight change of plans. I'm sure some of you guys already realized it. Maybe we're already clickety-clacking it down in the comments. But obviously, because of the way that it is set up with our refined storage system, it only takes fluid, not technically gases, which is a whole other realm. And I don't even think you can actually store gases in refined storage, if I'm not mistaken, at least in the version that we are in. It'd be cool if they did have it in that way at some point down the line. But anywho, so what we ended up doing is nixing that importer off of here and just basically having elite pressurized tubes running out from the back underneath our walkway here and back over to this side of the setup. So with this, we should be able to pump in our chloride with our hydrogen and get the hydrogen chloride. Now, all we have to do is get the chemical infuser. It is pretty straightforward. You are going to need some of these basic chemical tanks, which is some osmium and redstone, but again, not too complicated. Now, if I had everything I needed, it would make it so much easier. Obviously, we've been doing just a teeny bit of crafting here, so it was using up some of our resources. So we should be able to plop this bad boy down. And we got our hydrogen in right away. And then we just need the red one here input as well. So that does need to come in the back. So what we're going to do is put it just like so. And it should pull it in if I'm not mistaken, right? Because that is technically the back. But that's gases. That's what we need. So input, output, out. Okay, input. There we go. And there we have it. And so what it's doing is taking the chlorine and the hydrogen and making hydrogen chloride, which is awesome. So then what we could do is actually pump this stuff out. And obviously, I don't know if you can hear it that well on resistive heater makes a noise. Interesting. If you can hear it that well on the recording, but it does make a noise, and you can just do this nice little trick of using the muffler within the inventory to muffle that sound. But guys, that's going to do it for this episode. We're at our 30-minute mark, and we have gotten to the point where we are producing hydrogen chloride, which we will then eventually use into our chemical injection chamber that our ore goes into to then kind of tie into our whole setup we currently have. So that is going to be a whole other thing to get into. We don't have enough time, obviously, as it is in this episode, so we will have to wait until the next one for it. I might also have to look into the chemical injection chamber. I think there's something special with it, if I'm not mistaken. Chemical oxidizer injection chamber. That's what we're going to need next. I'm going to bookmark it. It's actually not too bad to make. I don't think there's different tiers of it either. It kind of just a one and done type scenario. I believe there's upgrades on here. Speed, energy, anything else? Muffling, which makes sense. And that's it. So that's all you could get on here. So you could get a speed upgrade to bump this up. Maybe we'll do that. But for the time being, I think we're in a perfectly good spot. So guys, thank you so much for watching today. I hope you appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you appreciate it as well, but I hope you enjoyed nonetheless. If you are new here, you do want to follow along, definitely hit that subscribe button and bell notification. I'll let you know every single time a new episode is posted here on the channel. I do stream over on Twitch, as I mentioned earlier, link in the description down below. We currently stream on Mondays and Fridays at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right about then. We also have a community Discord set up, link in the description as well. And I do try to post updates over there. We do have a cool community growing over there, so if you feel like hanging out, asking questions, just chilling, definitely recommend checking it out. But guys, thank you so much for hanging out today. Appreciate it so very much, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take it easy.